Welcome to Drink Sober Not Boring. My name is Era, a former bartender and a recovering alcoholic. Each week we'll be joined by a different guest from the non-alcoholic space. These remarkable individuals will bring their unique stories, perspectives, and shed light on a world beyond alcohol, full of joy, growth, and endless possibilities. Together we'll navigate the challenges, celebrate our victories, and create a supportive community that thrives on compassion, understanding, and resilience. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider leaving a review. It helps others looking for support find us more easily. But here's what matters most. If you know someone who's currently struggling, someone who could benefit from feeling less alone on their journey, I ask you to share this podcast with them. On today's episode, we have Ian Blessing, co-founder of All the Bitter. We had a great conversation about methods of getting sober and finding sober community, how bitters are made. It's just an all-around great conversation. I'm sure there's a lot that resonates with many people, and I can't wait for y'all to hear. So enjoy and share with a friend. All right. So today we have Ian Blessing on the podcast. You co-founded All the Bitter with your wife. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
That's what I thought. I see you guys in pictures together all the time, and I'm like, these are best friends, or they're definitely married.
Yeah, both best friends and married and business
Good,
partners.
good. What inspired you to do that? Like, where did that start for you?
Well, both of us. So we met working together at the French Laundry as sommeliers. So our background was in fine dining and wine and food and a lot of alcoholic beverages, both professionally and personally. We quit drinking together after we had our first son. He was about 5 months old, and we decided to quit drinking at the same time and got very into the non-alcoholic beverage space just as consumers. Was pretty excited to find that there was not just O'Doul's anymore, that there were non-alcoholic IPAs and, golden ales and porters and stouts and sours and all of the above. And then, pretty quickly afterwards found the emerging non-alcoholic spirit space and got really excited about the idea of enjoying a Negroni again for the first time. Built a bar pretty quickly, built a non-alcoholic bar at home, and realized that there were a ton of options for spirits on the market, but very, very few options for alcohol-free bitters, which are an incredibly important cocktail ingredient. Something you only use in small amounts, but there are literally hundreds of cocktails that you can't make without bitters. And decided that, we were at the point where we didn't want to work in restaurants anymore because we had two small kids and we didn't really know what we wanted to do. And this space, this marketplace was really emerging, and we felt a strong connection to it and realized that we wanted to work in this space. And so we decided to create our own line of alcohol-free cocktail bitters.
What an awesome story. It's awesome now that it's, you did it a few years ago, but like in 20 years, people are going to be like, there was not alcohol? There wasn't any back then? Like, that's awesome. I mean, there's a lot of different things to try, but I feel like a lot of the companies are just redoing the same thing. Like,
honestly, it's been a surprise to us that we haven't seen any more non-alcoholic bitters emerge in the time that we've started doing this. There's one other brand that has kind of joined the US market called Bab Louie. They're an Indian brand, and they started, I don't know when they started, but they started either before us or right around the same time. And they've just made it to the States. But as far as I know, there have not been any other new non-alcoholic bitters brands. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait until there are.
I mean, I would think it's a pretty daunting task, right? Because like you mentioned, a little goes a long way. So in other beverages, you can kind of, if it tastes all right, you can kind of get over the fact that it's not like perfectly the same or as similar as you want it to be. But bitters are so unique, and they change the entire profile of a drink. It's like if you're not going to be able to get it right, you might as well not do it at all.
And I
so
think
that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. I think that bitters are also kind of misunderstood. People understand and have more experience with beer, wine, spirits, cocktails, etc. And those things are also easier to kind of get behind as something easy to crack open and drink. Like cocktail bitters, aren't the star of the show. We're a supporting player. We're not the main ingredient. We're not the primary focus in a cocktail. Bitters and soda, totally different,
Game changer.
conversation. Yeah, bitters and soda, we are the main ingredient, and we a lot of our customers and how we drink most of our bitters at home is just mixing them with soda water, and that's as easy as mixing anything with soda or tonic or ginger beer, whatever.
Hmm.
And is super refreshing and is a great alternative to a flavored sparkling water, but you don't get any chemical aftertaste. There's no artificial ingredients. It's more complex. It's like the cocktail version of a LaCroix, right? And then you get digestive benefits too. So anyway, to kind of sidetrack a little bit, that's where we are the star of the show. But I
But I
think that
wanted
it's a
to hear kind of all of the things about how and why. I kind of figured why, because I don't think if you were like, yeah, I drink all the time and I care about the non-alcoholic space. I just wanted to create this. Like clearly there's probably a need for it in your life and you created it. And I think that's awesome.
yeah, and
Um,
that's really why it came about. Was we were both, and we still are, comfortable using alcoholic bitters in non-alcoholic cocktails, but not everybody is,
right.
and especially coming from and really the inspiration for this was thinking about the hospitality space. It was thinking about bars and restaurants and the emerging non-alcoholic menus that have started to pop up over the last couple of years and will continue to emerge over the next couple of years. In the same way that, veggie burgers existed 10 years ago, but didn't really take hold until, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago? And now you can
Hmm.
get, a veggie breakfast sandwich at Starbucks or Del Taco, or Carl's Jr. has an Impossible or Beyond Meat. They have some kind of veggie burger that's incredible. Um, Bars and restaurants are going to go the same way, and you're going to see non-alcoholic cocktail programs pop up on every single menu across the country. And even if you're comfortable with using, say, 2-3 dashes of alcoholic bitters in a cocktail, it's not going to get you drunk. Drinking a bottle of Angostura is going to get you drunk,
Oh
but
yeah,
using
for
it
sure.
two,
For sure.
but using
Hmm.
it 2 dashes at a time isn't technically going to make the drink. Let me backtrack. It's not necessarily going to get you drunk, but it is very, very easy to get over that threshold of 0.5% alcohol by using 1 dash too many. And again, not going to
Mm,
get you buzzed, not going to get you drunk, but the definition of non-alcoholic is 0.5% alcohol. So if we're
hmm.
talking about, let's use a classic example, an old fashioned, two,
Right.
3, 4 ounces of bitters, depending on your recipe. The drink itself is only 2.5 ounces of liquid. Even after dilution, even after stirring it with ice, you've got 4 ounces of liquid. 2 dashes of bitters in a 4 ounce drink is over 0.5% alcohol. So an old fashioned made with, let's say, Kentucky 74, which already
Hmm.
has a percentage of alcohol because it's alcohol removed. I don't know the exact percentage, probably 0.2 or something.
Right.
Adding 2 dashes of bitters, alcoholic bitters, to a non alcoholic old fashioned is over 0.5% alcohol. Not going to get you drunk, but absolutely over the legal definition of non alcoholic. And that number is important to people. That number is important to
I
people
mean,
in recovery. That number is important to being compliant with calling something non alcoholic.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's not. It's such an interesting thing because no, 2 dashes of bitters won't get you drunk, but 5 dashes of bitters might make you want to drink a beer, like a real one.
And
So it's like,
it's entirely personal. It's a very, just like everything in the non-alcoholic space,
right.
recovery is very personal. What works for me might not work for you. This person might be okay with drinking an NA beer. This person might not be. One person considers it a slippery slope. I consider it a lifesaver.
Oh,
So
the slippery
it's
slope thing. Don't get me started on the
I
slippery
know it's a
slope.
whole nother conversation, but it's entirely personal. And the idea of being a bartender or a server and serving a non-alcoholic drink that included Angostura would make me uncomfortable personally as a
Me
server.
too.
I would want
Me
to
too.
have the conversation with every single guest that ordered it and make sure they knew what was in the drink. And that would be the same as saying our veggie burger is cooked in bacon fat.
Hmm.
Some people aren't going to care. Some people aren't vegetarian. They just want to eat less meat. That's the case with most people that are drinking NA beverages. They just want to drink less. They're not going to care about Angostura. But 10-20% of those people are going to look at you like you're crazy and say, why would you use alcoholic bitters in my non-alcoholic cocktail?
Right.
So if there's an option out there, if there's a replacement, an alternative that you can use that tastes just as good, that can be easily replaced one to one with the classic cocktail bitters, why wouldn't you just use that instead? Why wouldn't you save yourself the the conversation, the headache, the potential legal ramifications,
Guilt,
the
shame, all
the
that stuff.
possibility of somebody going home and looking up Angostura and realizing that Angostura is alcoholic, and they didn't even know that Angostura was alcoholic before, because a lot of people don't know that bitters have alcohol in them. So that person goes home and realizes that they drank 45% alcohol. It was only 2 dashes, but it was 2 dashes of 45% alcohol in their drink. And that sends them on a mental spiral. And they
I
think,
was gonna say
well, I had
spiraling, yeah.
I had 2 dashes of bitters. I may as well go drink a bottle of whiskey. Is that an extreme example? Yes, but it's also an actual real life example that happens to people. So from the perspective of serving people, you have to be super careful in this space about how you refer to things, how you talk about things, how you sell things, and taking the alcoholic bitter question off the table just seemed like a no-brainer. And the fact that it wasn't really being done was like, okay, this is probably something that we should tackle, and we should do ourselves.
How does one even start making, like, I wouldn't even be like, I know how to make beer, I know how to make liquor. I would not even know where to go, what to do, what to buy, how to start making bitters. Did you guys know, or how did you?
Yeah, I mean, kind of vaguely. I had never made bitters before, but I think along with everybody during the pandemic, we were all trying to figure out, what to do when we were locked in our house. And as everybody else was making sourdough, we tried sourdough, and it was too messy. We did not succeed. We gave up sourdough after about a week or so.
Give
I
it a
got
solid
real,
shot.
Yeah, I did. We tried it, and it failed. I got really into herbalism. I wanted to make blends of tea for Carly. Carly, has some stress and anxiety issues, and I was, kind of excited to put together custom formulations of beneficial herbs for her in tea form, and that led into making bottle fermented sodas. So making like ginger beer and root beer, fermented in bottle only for a day or two. So they're very, very low alcohol. Wouldn't get you drunk, but really fun bottle fermented drinks. And that was kind of the beginning of my journey into herbalism and playing with these barks and roots and herbs, both for flavor but also functional benefit. So I had already kind of started down that path. And when I realized that we wanted to make bitters, I thought, well, this is great. I've already been, kind of playing with these ingredients for the last couple of years now. And so from there, it was just figuring out how to actually assemble cocktail bitters. And, we had never made bitters before, but we've worked in bars and restaurants and worked with cocktail programs, and had a very clear understanding of what bitters were supposed to taste like. And so
Hmm.
we kind of reverse engineered it, and took those classic bitter profiles and broke down the flavors and picked out what we could, and did, what research we could into the ingredients that were included in those classic bitters, and just started playing around. And honestly, we Googled how do you make bitters, and then Googled how do you make non-alcoholic bitters.
That's what I would have done.
That was what we did. There's no secret here. There's nothing hidden in our process. If you Google how to make a glycerite, which is the glycerin version of a tincture, or a
Okay.
glycerin extract.
Yeah.
Google how to make a glycerite, um, and click on the first blog that comes up, and that's how I learned to make cocktail bitters. It's obviously more involved than that. The secret to bitters is not how you make it. That part's really easy. The process is essentially you take your ingredients and you put them in a solvent, whether that solvent be high proof alcohol, or in our case, a mixture of water, glycerin, and a little bit of vinegar, and you let it sit for a period of time. For alcoholic bitters, it might only take 2 weeks. Our bitters take 6 to 7 weeks to extract, because glycerin doesn't work quite as well as alcohol does. It works, but it doesn't work as well. That's one of the challenges that we face. So, kind of the process of making them is very straightforward. The harder part is coming up with the recipe, is fine tuning the proportions, the ratios, the ingredients, balancing the flavors, and then actually physically doing it. So doing it at home isn't really that hard, but it involves purchasing, anywhere from 6 or 7 to 20 or so different ingredients, which can be a little daunting. So you've got to go
Mm-hmm.
find, a
Yeah.
specialty producer that sells all those herbs, and you've got to find all that stuff. It's not things that you're just going to have in your kitchen cabinet. So there's there's some specialty sourcing that goes on, but very doable. And you could do it in a mason jar. You put together your liquid, you put together the herbs that you want to throw in there, and you toss them in your jar and you shake it up every day for again 6, 7, 8 weeks, however long you want it to go for. Taste it throughout the process, and once it's finished, you strain the herbs off and press them and filter it, and then you're done.
Yeah, so easy.
Um,
It sounds really easy.
it's really
Sounds
easy,
like
yeah. The harder part, is of course scaling it up, and so making it in mason jars
yeah.
is one thing, but we took it from 12-ounce mason jars to 5-gallon containers to 55-gallon drums to 500-liter stainless steel tanks, and had to figure out how to negotiate 55-gallon drums of glycerin and how to pump glycerin from now a 250-gallon tote of glycerin to a 130-gallon tank. So there was obviously a big learning curve along the way in taking it from a mason jar in our home kitchen to a commercial scale in a commercial kitchen. And it was pretty messy, and there was a lot of mistakes along the way, and a lot of expensive mistakes, but we figured it out eventually, and continue to learn and grow.
Are you tired of the same old boring drinks that do absolutely nothing for your mood or mindset? Look no further than Three Spirits, the perfect blend of science and mixology to enhance your day and night. At Three Spirits, their team of plant scientists and bartenders, how cool is that, have come together to create the ultimate experience for your senses while blending adaptogens, nootropics, herbs, and ferments using complex processes such as maceration, fermentation, distillation, all the Asians. They'll do everything possible they can to get the most out of every ingredient. When I had insomnia after having my son Noah, Nightcap was my go-to. Share your experience with us at info@drinksobernotboring.com and check out Three Spirits online at us.threespiritsdrinks.com/sobernotboring. That's us.threespiritsdrinks.com/sobernotboring. You don't have to settle for boring anymore. Upgrade your beverage game today with Three Spirits.
We moved to Chico, a couple hours away in Northern California, where we have family. And I went back to work in restaurants very briefly for about a month, and decided I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to work late nights. I didn't like working in restaurants anymore. Honestly, I miss it, and I dream about going back all the time.
So do I. But once you have a kid, it's like,
and that was it. And maybe we are like, our retirement plan is we're going to get an RV and we're going to travel the country, and we're going to work in a diner in some random city, some really small town for 6 months, and then drive to another small town.
sounds
And
like an awesome rom-com.
I can't wait. And then we're going to work in another diner for 6 months, just for fun, really. But at this point, with two kids, we have two kids really close in age. Like, we both need to be home to help with bath time, bedtime, dinner, packing lunch the next day. Like, it wasn't really fair for me to be out at a restaurant until 1 a.m, closing the restaurant down. So got out of restaurants, and I decided to take real estate classes, because in my head, when you leave restaurants, the options are you become a rep for a liquor brand, or you go work for a distributor, or you go into consulting of some kind, or you go into real estate. That's like, for some reason, that's the other
Are
thing
you
that
calling
people
me
do.
out right now?
That's the other thing. Are you in real estate? Are you doing real estate?
My job closed because of COVID, and I went to real estate school, and now I'm a real estate agent.
I don't know why. Like,
It's a natural migration. I don't know. I think it's the social part of. I mean, not a lot of people can do that, and I think if you're looking for somebody that can, you can learn all the stuff that you need to learn to be a real estate agent. But if you can't talk to anybody, you might as well just go home.
I think that's why. I think it makes sense for a lot of us. It's social, and it's
you know what? I can make drinks that don't have alcohol in it.
Yeah.
I was a bartender for 12 years.
Yeah.
I just got to keep myself busy. And that's what I've just started making, like non-alcoholic margaritas just to pass the time. And then let me post this on Instagram. And I found this community that was just like, whoa, there were so many people. Everybody was like kind and open and caring. And I was just perplexed. I truly thought I was one of the only people who got sober at 25 because I had never met anybody like me before.
Yeah.
And then I went on there and I'm like, oh, this is so different. I mean, when I got sober, the only way I was told was you have to go to AA. You have to go to this
Yeah.
basement, talk to all of these old guys every day.
Drink a lot of black coffee.
Yeah.
Have some bad cookies.
And I said, like, I know it sounds weird, but I don't want to talk about something I don't want to do every day.
100%.
Like,
thank you for saying that. That was absolutely my issue. And I know that AA works for people, and that's amazing, and I'm grateful that it exists.
Yeah.
But my out was I quit drinking, and for the first time, like when I was drinking, all I did was think about drinking, or I was drinking. I spent all of my time thinking about or drinking. And once I quit drinking, I suddenly had like 16 hours in the day that were free to myself to think about whatever I wanted to think about, to do whatever I wanted to do. And the fact that I was spending most of that time either
come into this room with us, sir,
or meeting with my sponsor or doing homework at home was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I get to not think about drinking anymore. I don't want to continue thinking about not drinking. And I was so grateful to discover, and it was right around the same time. Like, I think I found non-alcoholic beverages around the same time that I dropped out of AA, I guess, whatever you would call it. I found non-alcoholic beverages at the same time. And, of course, my family, my support system, myself included, was like, okay, so you're not doing AA anymore. What are you going to do instead? You need something else. And so I said, okay, I'm going to create my own program. I don't know what that is yet, but I'm going to create my own program of recovery. That's how I justified it. And I started reading about Buddhism. I started, kind of working on self-improvement. And it was the pandemic, and so there was no work to do. And so there was all this time to like focus on myself and to focus on improving myself and to read and learn and keep my mind busy and focus on growing myself as a person. And I thought, this is good. This is what I'll focus on. And I did, and continued to do that. But discovering non-alcoholic beer, and then immediately after discovering that there was a community of people online on Facebook and Instagram that did nothing but talk about non-alcoholic beer and talked about sobriety and celebrated each other's milestones and days and talked about, the party they're going to, and they're worried about, not being able to drink, and there's not going to be any non-alc beer there. What should I do? What should I do? I'm going out to eat. What do you recommend? If they don't have anything on the menu, and people recommend, like a cranberry and lime and cranberry and tonic or something. The fact that there was a community of people talking about how to not drink successfully. We weren't necessarily talking about recovery, other than celebrating recovery. But people were here to talk about drinking without alcohol. And the fact that I was able to find, and we were all able to find, this community of people that for me essentially replaced AA and replaced what AA does for so many people, which is community. It did for me too. I had a support system that was online. It was all virtual, but it was the pandemic. So there was nothing to do other than immerse myself in non-alcoholic beverages and talk to people on Facebook. And that kept me sober and keeps me sober today. I will absolutely never tell people not to try AA, because it does work for people. But I will shout from the rooftops, if AA doesn't work for you, if you go in there and you go, you know what, this doesn't feel right, give non-alcoholic beverages a shot. Go join the Facebook groups, go join Instagram, go follow.
You're worth more than one thing to try.
Follow some people.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's not for everybody. It is and can be a slippery slope for people, as the saying goes. But
I have yet to see it. But yes, I've heard that.
I haven't either. And I the way that I I really hope that people think about it is think about it critically for yourself. Everybody is different. Just
Mhm.
because some old guy in a meeting told you, or some guy that wrote an article is saying black and white, if you have a non-alcoholic beer, you'll be dead in a week, because I've literally seen that written. I've seen that written and
Oh, I've
published
heard those.
as
I've heard words like that said
I've,
multiple times.
I've seen that published as fact multiple times over and over again. I've talked to people from my former life, from AA, that have reached out to say nothing other than non-alcoholic beers for non-alcoholics, as they saw a picture of an NA beer that I was drinking. And that was the first time I heard from them in years. Like, you don't need to say that. You can keep that to yourself. I'm
Well,
good
you
and this
seem
helps me.
triggered, my guy.
100%. And so I get it. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. Don't drink it. But it drives me nuts when people tell newcomers, like it's a fact, like it's a black and white fact, you cannot drink non-alcoholic beer because it'll be triggering for you. You don't know that about me. You don't know me. You don't know what's going to be triggering for me. You might feel that way because it is actually triggering for you.
Are you tired of bland, boring candles that are useless once they've burned out? Look no further than Forget Me Not Candle Company. These candles come in beautiful aesthetic glass jars that you can pair with refillable inserts to reduce waste and save you money. Not only do these candles look gorgeous, but they also help save the planet too. And if we're talking about scents, oat milk and honey is my current favorite, but don't sleep on golden hour. It's the perfect way to bring a little sunshine to your day. Ready to upgrade your candle game? Head to fmncandlecompany.com/drinksobernotboring to order now. That's fmncandlecompany.com/drinksobernotboring. Your home and the planet will thank you.
Now I relish going out and joining parties, going to happy hours, going to social gatherings, going to a bar or restaurant, because I know that I get to have something delicious in my hand and I get to feel like the group. I don't get to feel left out. And I look forward to the flavor of that drink. And I know that I get to drive home clear-headed and wake up tomorrow morning and get back to it and not feel like crap. So if you are one of those people that tell newcomers or people that are new to sobriety that non-alcoholic beer is off the table, please stop doing that. You're welcome to share your opinion. You're welcome to share your thoughts, but please stop sharing it as fact. Please stop insinuating that you are going to die if you take a sip of non-alcoholic beer, because it's not. It's simply not true. Encourage people to think critically for themselves. We're cutting off an avenue to recovery that could genuinely help people. But because Joe is scared of it for his own reasons, he's not allowing the new guy to think for himself. He's not allowing the new guy to think outside the box or think outside the rooms and try something different, whether that's NA drinks and the community online, or whether that's Smart Recovery, Dharma Recovery, any other program of recovery. There's not just one path forward anymore, and it doesn't even need to necessarily be traditional recovery. There are days where I want to drink and I go and I crack an NA beer and then I don't want to drink anymore, because I didn't want the feeling of being drunk. I just really wanted the feeling of drinking a beer.
Yeah.
Or I did want to get drunk. And you know what? That feeling passes.
Before we go, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in and becoming a part of our Drink Sober Not Boring community.